Hello there, how are you? It's Steve Lycett from Sumo Digital, and you might know me from such games as, well, Sarkin All-Star Racing Transformed, which had Ryo Hazuki in there. And you might have wondered, how did that happen? And basically it's my fault. If you haven't guessed just by looking, I'm a huge fan of Shenmue. In fact, I've got the jumper today and I've got my original Dreamcast copy sat right there. But really, but why am I a massive fan of Shenmue? Well, the reality is I'm a big fan of Yu Suzuki. And for me, like Yu Suzuki's classic arcade games, and my holy trinity of course is Outrun, Afterburner and Space Harrier, were games I played as a youngster, which I was absolutely blown away by the action, the speed and the prowess. And ironically, my original interest in Shenmue was not because of Shenmue, but because in Shenmue you could play classic Sega arcade games. I was very excited when I found out you could play Space Harrier, for example. And really that was kind of interesting and exciting, because being a fan of those games meant I bought Shenmue to play those games, and what I actually got was a much faster experience than I think I ever expected. For me, at that point, I'd never actually been to Japan when I first played Shenmue. I was working at Gremlin before Sumo. And to me, it was like actually visiting a place I've always wanted to go. The detail was there, the times of day, the people, the shops, the characters. And I fell in love with it, even though I'd gone in to play Space Harrier. So many years later, when we were working on the Sega racing games and Sonic All-Stars Tennis and all those, we really wanted to find a way to get that love of those games in there. And first of all, it was simply by including Ryo in the original version of All Stars Racing, and I think we surprised people when he was on a motorbike and not in a forklift, but we managed to do that. And in fact, I actually flew out to Japan to meet Yu Suzuki, which didn't happen. The day I was due to meet him, he'd actually called in and taken the day off, which was a real shame, so I met with some of his staff instead. But later that night I found out that the reason I didn't meet the man who I've idolised for many years is because one of my friends at Sony, Yoshi, who also used to work at Sumo, had taken him out for a massive meal and a night of partying, and he then showed me the pictures of it because I went out with him the following night. so I never got to meet Yu Suzuki personally, so there's still time yet. But that did lead to Ryo going into All-Star Racing, and there was a huge outcry for fans to get him back in for Transformed, and although we didn't get him in there initially for the launch, because we were struggling to work out what to get him to drive, because obviously the vehicle's actually transformed, we did manage to get it in there as DLC, and there it is. He's driving an Outrun cabinet and a Space Harrier cabinet and an Afterburner cabinet. Well, we didn't quite get all three of them in there, but we managed to pull them both off, and we got an Afterburner level in there anyway. So there you go. The reason why Ryo Hazuki in Transform drives those arcade cabinets is because I'm a fan of the arcade games. So there you go. I hope that's something new. You've learned something today. I'd like to do it again maybe one day, we'll see. I'm amused by the fact we put Shenmue 3 on the number plate, not least because I also suggested you should do it as a Kickstarter, which then happened. But these things are great. But no, thank you for letting me spend some time with you and reminiscing, and hopefully we'll speak again soon. Take care.
So I have a vague memory of seeing Shenmue for the first time back when I was about 8. My friend who I used to play Dreamcast with, he had it, and I used to walk to school with him, and I remember him always telling me how good Shenmue was. And I only ever saw it once back then. I was dropped off at his house to walk to school, and I remember him playing it, just a bit of it before we left for school, and I think he was in the interior of the Hazuki residence. That's kind of just like what I remember. I didn't see the game for many years after that, because whenever I'd go around his house it was all just multiplayer games. We were playing Power Stone and stuff like that, and then the next time I encountered Shenmue was actually by myself. I was in college. I would have been around 16 or 17, and I was talking with a mate about games, and I was like, oh man, I used to play this great console at my friend's house as a kid. It was called the Dreamcast, and I was recounting all the great games I played, and I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, and everywhere online was saying Shenmue is the Dreamcast game to play. So next thing I knew, I downloaded an emulator, I started playing it. I remember watching that initial cutscene and exploring the Hazuki residence, and I was opening every single drawer and picking up every single item. And I was like, this is really cool, you know. And a lot of games I'd played, you know, before and after Shenmue, you know, you just run from point A to point B. You're not sort of in one place searching around and really taking everything in. And the gameplay felt like nothing I'd ever played before. Yeah, it was slow, but I liked that it wanted you to kind of really, you know, immerse yourself in the environment. But the moment that really struck me was that bit when you leave Ryo's house and you go down the hill into the neighborhood, and that like amazing but very eerie music plays, and then you start talking to all the townspeople. And I remember the friend I'd been telling about the Dreamcast, he comes over, I think it was pretty much on the day I'd got the emulator, and you know, we played the game together, we had a good chuckle about the voice acting and, you know, how dry Ryo could be, but then most importantly, even he was like, wow, the attention to detail in this game is next level. And that was when I realised it isn't just me, this game is something really special. And it turns out there's actually a whole community of fans around the world who agree with that statement. When I was growing up, I was never that bothered about fantasy stories, and so Shenmue blew me away because it takes place in the real world. The game explores the minutiae of everyday life and allows you to live it out as you please. You know, what you get out of Shenmue is what you put in. You know, do you enjoy going to the arcade or hoarding capsule toys? Maybe you like to go in every shop or talk to every character. The choice is yours. I remember getting up to about warehouse number 8 before I decided it's time to buy myself a Dreamcast. I got the two games off eBay. I've got my original copies here. They came in a lot together for a great price at the time. I've also got Watch Shenmue. There you go. And yeah, so when it comes to Shenmue 2, that was when I felt the story really hit the ground running. And I think I'm one of those rarer people who prefers the second game to the first. I love the first, but there's something about the second game that really gets me. I feel like it has everything I loved about the first game, but it's just on a bigger scale. And I also appreciated the quality of life improvements. I really liked that the game took Ryo from that comfortable setting of his home back in Japan and instead takes him on a journey, you know, through various different cities and locales. And along the way, he's meeting great new characters, you know, really charismatic characters like Joy and Ren. So this is where we come to Shenmue 3. I remember for a long time, getting this game was priority number one for me and a lot of people. And this effort was important because I remember at the time, SEGA had basically just forgotten all of the amazing games that they made during their time as a console manufacturer. If it wasn't Sonic, they didn't care. You know, all the great Dreamcast franchises have been neglected, and Shenmue, out of all of them, was the one game that myself and so many others were like, how could you pretend that this game does not exist? It is a masterpiece. Have you even played Shenmue? It's incredible. And so we never stopped as a community making sure everyone knew about how good Shenmue was and how much we wanted Shenmue 3 and, you know, the story to continue. And if you are from any community that wants a piece of media, a game franchise, whatever it is to return and feel like it's never going to happen, you know, you've given up hope, just look at what happened with Shenmue 3 and see that as evidence that any passionate community of people coming together can get anything done. And I remember the day that that game was announced. I was on holiday and I remember waking up and I checked my phone and I turned to my now wife and I'm like, they're making Shenmue 3! We done it.
Hi, I'm Josh Fairhurst. I'm the CEO of Limited Run Games. Shenmue is one of my favorite games and always will be. It holds a very special place in my heart. It was one of the first games that really showed me how big games could be and how games could still be fun even when they were slower paced and really, you know, gave you a chance to immerse yourself in the world of the games. You know, being able to play this game and live a day in the life of a Japanese teen in the 80s. Granted, you know, seeking out vengeance for my father's death was a part of this, but just taking in the atmosphere and doing all of the side things, I don't know, just showed me that games could be so much more than what they were at the time. I held on to my love for Shenmue for many years, despite, you know, not seeing a Shenmue 3 and feeling like I was giving up hope on it. But when they announced Shenmue 3 at E3, like everybody else, I was super ecstatic and elated about it. The year after that, at E3, I got the chance to meet Yu Suzuki and actually tell him about, you know, my love for Shenmue. He autographed some things for me. Getting to meet Suzuki-san and really explain to him how much Shenmue meant to me was a very special thing. And then everything came full circle for me when I got to help out on the collector's edition of Shenmue 3 for the US. We produced this commemorative Dreamcast case. It's empty, but you know, it's still a cool piece that kind of serves as a what if Shenmue had actually continued to come out on the Dreamcast, and I thought that was a really special thing for me as a Dreamcast fan. And then, you know, a year after that, I got to do another release, the Shenmue 3 Complete Edition, which collected the full story of Shenmue 3 on one disc with all of the DLC physically preserved, which I felt like was a very important thing because I still go back to the original Shenmue, and it's been 25 years. I'm still going to go back to Shenmue 3 in 25 years, and I wanted to be able to have that DLC preserved on disc to play again, because some of the weirdest and funniest stuff happens in that DLC. Like, it's not super story critical, but, you know, the little boy on the cruise ship, there's stuff in there that's just a different side of Shenmue that I thought was really important to preserve and fun. So I'm just happy that I got to be a part of the history of Shenmue, and I can't wait to hopefully see more of this series. I love it, and I want to see Ryo's journey come to an end.
Hey guys, Casey from the SEGA Lounge here. How can you explain why Shenmue is so important to people? Why is it so important to me? Why is it still my favorite video game series of all time? It's kind of hard if you haven't experienced the game, but I'll try. Shenmue, especially the first game, came at a very important time in my life. I was starting to get into adulthood, and my life was changing a little bit like Ryo's was. And that feeling of going into the unknown and exploring a world, even a familiar world, but having to find a job, that the mystery surrounding Ryo's father's death, the murder, and finding the culprit and avenging his death, that was something that like really resonated with me for some reason. I was also experiencing some change in my life, and I think that resonated with me on a personal level. But the whole experience of living in that like living, breathing world of Dobuita and Yokosuka, and meeting everyone every day, people doing their like really mundane tasks every day, but having their own routines, and you being able to experience that with them and following them around and talking to them, that was really special for me at the time. I remember being mind blown by just the intro cutscene, the music, everything about Shenmue really was something truly special, that unlike anything else that I had experienced up until that point. And Shenmue also is important to me because it opened my mind, my eyes, my ears to other things that I really hadn't experienced and enjoyed so much at the time. It was the one game that really made me fascinated by Japanese culture, which was a big part of my life already, because I had been playing video games made in Japan for a long time, and I knew like Japan as this mythical place, distant country, but being able to live in Japan via Ryo, that was really special for me at the time. Also, types of music I didn't even know would be so important and so enjoyable to me, like orchestral music. For the first time, thanks to Shenmue, that really like resonated with me. The soundtrack to Shenmue is amazing. It's integral to the whole experience as well, both Shenmue 1 and 2. And so I think it was part, the game being so amazing, being unlike anything else that existed at that point in time. Also, part of it being that it happened that I experienced Shenmue in a time of my life, in formative years, that really defined who I am now, who I became later, the things that I enjoyed, the experiences that I hold dear to my heart. So all of this together truly contributes to create something that I don't think will ever be replicated in any way, unless we get more Shenmue games and we get to continue this experience and to continue Ryo's journey. And so it's really hard, like I said, to explain to someone who hasn't experienced Shenmue at that point in time, like I had and so many of us had. It's really hard to explain, but I do think Shenmue truly still is unlike anything else and any type of entertainment out there, especially video games. There's no video game that ever made me feel exactly how Shenmue made me feel so many years ago. And it's really part of the content that I create as a podcaster, as a radio show host on Radio SEGA. All of that also revolves around Shenmue, around its music, around its community, and it's really a thing of pride to me to be able to be a part of this amazing community. And hopefully, SEGA opens up their eyes to the importance of this IP, or any way else we can get Shenmue 4. That hopefully happens very soon. Hopefully we can get to continue Ryo's journey. So, let's get Shenmue 4. Thank you very much for the opportunity to Shenmue Dojo for letting me be a part of this. And hopefully we get Shenmue 4 very, very soon and continue the journey.
Hey, it's Matt here from ShenmueDojo.com. Now, Shenmue celebrating 25 years is absolutely insane in itself. I can't believe it's gone on that quickly. That said, it's a well-deserved 25th anniversary, but let's talk a little bit about why Shenmue means so much to so many people, including myself. Now, back in the day, Shenmue was absolutely groundbreaking and still holds water today in terms of the world, the environment, the music, and the characters and everything together. It holds water even now. Yes, some people call it clunky in some parts, and I can get it, but for what it did, the line in the sand it drew for gaming, it just meant so much to so many people, and still does today. This was SEGA at their pomp. This was SEGA being innovators. This was AM2 and Yu Suzuki just nailing every aspect of a video game that they could possibly go and do. It was a massively, massively influential time in my life. It provided a world for me to get lost in for when things weren't too good in my life at the time as a teenager. It gave me that opportunity to just lose myself and to have that opportunity to sit and just enjoy the world, enjoy the story of Ryo Hazuki, and move forward through the game in a world that just felt real. It felt alive, and games these days have always struggled, I think, in my opinion, to get anywhere close to that. But not only that, as I say, this is a game that's inspired games for generations. You're talking Cyberpunk, Red Dead Redemption 2, any sort of open world game these days will borrow an aspect of Shenmue and what Shenmue pioneered. It was very much the first of its kind, and it's a game that I think deserves a lot more respect than it actually does get, I think, in some circles. It was defining, but not only that, it was defining in the games that I then end up playing, sort of most story-based RPG games I love. That all started with Shenmue. I loved 90s Sega. I loved the arcade pomp and everything about it. But Shenmue was formative in the games that I go ahead and enjoy to these days. All the story-based stuff on top of all the Sega arcade stuff that was done back in the day. So Shenmue for me wasn't just a line in the sand. It formed everything around how I play games, how I enjoy games, and how I view games. Yes, there's going to be a biased tendency towards Shenmue because I own the website Shenmue Dojo. Of course there's going to be. But for what it did, for what it pioneered, for what it means to so many people, Shenmue just resonates and resonates wide. And I hope to God we get a Shenmue 4. I'm sure we will in time. But that's not why we're here. Shenmue has turned 25 years. Thank you to SEGA, thank you to AM2, thank you to Yu Suzuki for everything that has been done around Shenmue over the last 25 years. And I hope we see more.
It's kind of hard to believe that Shenmue is 25 years old today. I very clearly remember the first time that I discovered that game. I know it's a bit different than most people, but the first time I discovered Shenmue was Shenmue 2 on the Xbox. It was just a game that was just sitting in a pile of games that my older brother had brought home one day, and something about the box art just really intrigued me. And I popped it in the Xbox, I played a few minutes of it, I watched that little movie that came with it that recapped the events of Shenmue 1, and maybe within an hour of playing the game, I was like, okay, I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to go back. I need to find a Dreamcast. I need to find a copy of Shenmue 1, and I need to play this game. Just because that brief hour that I played Shenmue 2 for, whatever it was, it hooked me. And I think I spent the next 25 years as a gamer just trying to chase that feeling. And it's so hard for a video game to come close to capture the magic that was when I first played Shenmue. There was a time in my life where I thought that I was the only person who knew about this game or liked this game and enjoyed this game, and it wasn't until that I discovered places like the Shenmue Dojo and other fan sites that I really started to feel like I was part of this community of people who were just like me. And in my 20s I was actually able to meet a lot of these people in real life, and I had some just incredible experiences with them, like going to Japan, going to the places in Japan where the game took place, seeing some of those places, and just kind of being in that environment, being in the atmosphere. Definitely one of the more memorable experiences of my life. And not only that, but just being able to be a part of making a documentary film about Shenmue and how that game came to be, and Yu Suzuki and a little bit about his life. A film that tells the story of the passion of the fans, and the fact that 25 years later they're still just as passionate about this game as they ever were. So again, it's crazy to think that it's been 25 years. It's been a great 25 years, and I cannot wait to see what's in store for the future of Shenmue.
Hey, my name's Adam Koralik, and I'm a YouTuber and, of course, a Shenmue fan. So when Shenmue initially launched, I actually, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't that big of a fan. I heard about it coming up. I had some friends who were excited about it, but I was more interested in, where is Sonic Adventure 2? I want that. And I remember us renting it and checking it out, and I didn't think a whole lot of it. I enjoyed going to the arcade, and I was like, this game is weird. It did not hit me that I had just started playing the greatest thing that humanity has ever created. Yes, I went from not being a fan at all to saying this is the pinnacle of human achievement, is the Shenmue franchise. But no, in all seriousness, yeah, initially I just wasn't that all that into it. And then, as the Dreamcast version was coming up, or well, technically was canceled in North America, the European version was still brought out over here through GameStop specifically. You could get the imported version. And I remember picking that up just because of the fact that it was odd that it was possible to get that. But even then, I didn't really play it all that much. It wasn't actually until the Xbox version, which came out in 2002, that I kind of revisited it, specifically in 2003. And when I did that, I sat down with a buddy of mine, and we decided to actually sit down and play it, because I remember I had kind of played it through the first one maybe once and was like, whatever about it. But that second time going through, it just dawned on me. This truly is unique and special, and everyone needs to know about it. I my younger self just could not grasp the majesty of what I now was understanding only a few years later. That says something about the Shenmue franchise, because to a lot of people it starts off very slow and it's very demanding, but what I didn't understand as a kid, and I think a lot of people don't, is that that's the charm of it. Shenmue didn't just create the open world game. It basically is the definitive example of the concept of the genre, because that game did not give you scale for scale's sake. It gave you immersion for immersion's sake. And what I mean by that is, yeah, like if you walk around Rio's house and you pick up an orange or something, like that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like the player has no reason to do that. Or if you walk around Dobuita and you go in the back towards Dobuita, you can go into Mario's Pizza. There's never a canonical reason within the game to actually have to go there. But still, the room was fully designed, characters were made, audio was recorded for all of them, the specific music score was created. Now, why does that seem like a compliment when I'm actually, it seems like an insult, but it's actually a compliment. What I'm trying to say is that game gave you the world. It said, this is reality. In any given day in your life, you can do any number of things. And that experience, that total immersion of like, well, I can pick up, this orange, or I can go to this random shop or whatever, whenever I choose to. You aren't just playing a game, you're starting to get into Rio's life. And that sort of character immersion is why the Shenmue fan base had become so as intense as it is because everybody doesn't say this isn't just a game, even though we're objectively aware that it is a video game. These become like familiar characters that are family and friends. That always made Shenmue so much stronger. The narrative. That's why it hits us so hard, and that's why we are so devoted to it. And that devotion has yielded fruit for a lot of us in different ways. Myself, going on beyond just being a fan, not only have I been making videos about the franchise for years and trying to promote it and be a cheerleader, as it were, I was eventually allowed, SEGA themselves, who actually gave me the sweater, by the way, they had gotten me involved in the series, and I was allowed to work on the reissues, the 1 and 2 reissues, a little bit on Shenmue 3 as well, which of course was just an insane experience to have any involvement in whatsoever. So for me, it was a very transformative experience in my life. And as we go forward here, we can say with the new shepherdship of ININ or ININ games, we at the very least know we're going to get a more definitive edition of Shenmue 3, which is a wonderful thing to say that there is, pretty much objectively sure at this point, a new issue, a new release of the Shenmue franchise. In of itself, that is something worth celebrating. But as these titles, we continue to support them as a community and rally around them, there really is no reason that we can't look forward to a Shenmue 4. Shenmue 5, I still have some qualms about the possibility of, but Shenmue 4, that can very much happen. So just get out there, everybody, vote with your wallets, you buy the ININ releases, you buy the merch from Sega, whatever that stuff is. Any amount of money that's going into that franchise only improves the probability of us seeing more of a future. I'm very much looking forward to it, and it's been a blast for Shenmue to just still be around and still be relevant and still be loved, because there are so many franchises that had 1, maybe 2 games and then just fell off the face of the earth without that kind of dedication. Even when it seems the most hopeless in the Shenmue universe, remember, you are not alone, and there's a ton of people just like you who want this series to endure. And luckily for us, it does.
Hey, Magnus here, and I can't believe that Shenmue has been out for 25 years. That means a lot of time has passed. But the memory of Shenmue will live on. Shenmue, one of my favorite games to ever be released, has meant a lot to me, especially over the years, because it's something that not only brings me back to my childhood, brings me back to a world where things were just a lot simpler in my life. And when I say childhood, I was still kind of an adult back then, but still made me feel like a kid again when playing this game. The nostalgia that it has for the 80s, the story-driven legacy that this thing has, where we all want to know what's going to happen next. All of it means so much to me, and the way that Shenmue not only revolutionized the video game industry in different ways, such as really revolutionizing QTE events, to making open world a concept in reality with a very, very limited engine that they designed from scratch themselves back then. It really trying to open new worlds, not just for me, but for the gaming industry, as to what can be possible when playing this type of media. Now, one of the things that I looked forward to and remembered the most in Shenmue and wanted to really participate in when I bought it, and it still stays in mind to this day, is the ability to actually go into an arcade and play some Sega hits in a video game. So a game within a game. That concept just blew my mind, and it's something that of course has been adopted in other game series as years followed, but Shenmue did it so immersive, they did it the right way, and I think that revolutionary step that it took was the step that made me want to purchase Shenmue when it came out, because I wanted to play a video game within a video game and then live that story. And quite honestly, it hasn't just affected me, but it's affected the game world ever since it came out. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you guys and give my thoughts on Shenmue.
Hi guys, it's James from ShenmueDojo.com. Wow, 25 years of Shenmue already is absolutely insane. So yeah, it's the 25th anniversary of the greatest video game of all time that ever graced this fine earth. This is Shenmue, Japanese version, that was released 25 years ago today on the Sega Dreamcast. Just absolutely incredible game. Unbeknownst to me, a year later it would find its way underneath the Christmas tree as a small child, picking up Shenmue and just exploring Ryo's room, Ryo's house. Absolutely life-changing experience. I absolutely loved it back in the year 2000. Not much has changed. We don't live underwater, but I still absolutely love this game. It's basically dictated my life at this point, inspired, especially over the last 5 years, obviously all the work that we've been doing for Shenmue Dojo, podcasts, the personal project of mine, Shenmue World, that we've actually done 3 issues of at this point. There's 1 and 2. And the latest issue, issue 3, arriving on people's doorsteps as we speak. I just cannot believe that a video game can actually inspire someone's life, just like I say, life-changing, so much so that we're planning to actually move to Japan next year. Fingers crossed it comes off, but Japan probably wouldn't even be on my radar at this point if it wasn't for Shenmue. Absolutely fell in love with the culture when I first popped that disc of Shenmue 1 into my Sega Dreamcast. And obviously Shenmue fans, we've had trials and tribulations over the years, constantly waiting, where's Shenmue, where's Shenmue? I know Suzuki said that quite a lot, didn't he, where's Shenmue 3? We did finally get Shenmue 3, which is amazing, and we're sort of in that sort of period of waiting for Shenmue 4, but we've got in games on board now, so fingers crossed we can get Shenmue 4. Potentially an announcement or something next year would be incredible. I just want to say happy anniversary to Shenmue. Thank you, massive thank you to all of the Shenmue community who have stuck behind this series. Some of the talent out there is incredible, like George Kitchen with his Dreams of Saturn 2.0 that's just been released. That Saturn quiz that's just been released. We've got fan games left, right and centre, and fan projects, fan art, fan content, creations like Shenmue World are only possible because of the fan community out there, and it's definitely, in my opinion, the best community on the internet, especially a good driving force to prove to people that if you want something hard enough, you can actually, obtain it. If you all band together, nothing is impossible. Wow, inspiring words from James there. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Happy 25th anniversary to Shenmue. Here's to 25 more, of course.
Konnichiwa, Eric Kelso here in Tokyo. Happy 25th anniversary to Shenmue and to all the creators and players. I first met Suzuki-san in 1996 when I was asked to voice the role of Jackie Bryant in Virtua Fighter 3. And I guess I did a good enough job because later he chose me to voice 2 characters in a very different kind of game in 1999. In Shenmue, I played Ryo's trusted friend, Masayuki Fukuhara, who actually made me feel like a better person whenever he spoke. I also played Mr. Cool himself, the respected advisor and teacher, Guizhang. Then in 2001, Shenmue came back for a second round, and I was given my favorite role of all time, the leader of the heavens, Wu Ying Ren, and all the badness and goodness he brought along with him. At the time, we had no idea what a phenomenon it would become. To the voice actors, it was just another game, albeit with more lines than most games, which was fun. But we soon realized that Suzuki-san's story held such great power that it became an important part of many people's lives, including my own. So much so that 15 years after Shenmue 2, it was the fans that brought it back to life. Thank you to everyone for joining Suzuki-san's dream. I feel so lucky to have met so many players online and in Tokyo for those who have come, and I truly believe we are a family. Thank you, Suzuki-san, for changing my life and for giving me such a wonderful family. Happy 25th anniversary, everyone. Come by.